Well, welcome back, everyone. In the last episode, we got a pretty good start on the winch that's going to be used to raise and lower the table. So I'm just going to roll right back into that again on this episode, and I think we should be able to completely finish the winch up. Then about all that leaves is I'm going to build a little tool tray, a folding tool tray, where you would put different spacers and pins and things that you'd use on a press. And then other than that, shoot some paint on this thing and we'll be about done. So let's get going. So the next step is to attach it to the mandrel, as well as, so that'll ultimately go on here. I've got to square the end of this up. I don't want it to be right up tight against the frame here, because then that'll make the dog a little hard to make the dog clear. So I'll cut another smaller diameter circle to stick onto this, and that'll space that out a little bit from the main frame. And then also I'm going to cut another round on this end, and that would be the captured in there. This end will get welded on. This end I'll put a plate in here with some threaded holes, so this assembly bolts onto the end, so you can slide the whole thing through the frame, put this on, bolt it on, and then I've got the slot to cut. So next thing I'm going to do is cut those two round pieces out. Since that saw works so well, I'm going to see, I don't know if I can turn that tight a radius with that looks like about a 5/8 blade, but we're going to see what happens. So I'll cut a couple pieces of the 3/16 and then I'll see if I can make a circle out of them. I cut out a 2-inch strip off of that. I'm going to make these 2-inch diameter. I cut a 2-inch strip off that piece of 4-inch 1/8 flat stock. So I was at a estate sale the other day. I've got a couple compasses, but I don't really have a really nice compass. And I seen this was on the table for $5, and it's Helix. It's called a Helix drawing set. It's got a couple, 2, 3 different, really looks like pretty nice compasses. It says it's made in Italy, so never heard of the brand, but it's a pretty precision-looking compass with. It came with a little bottle of leads, a little tiny sharpener for the leads. There was only one item missing, and don't know what it was. That was in this spot. I suspect maybe it was a scrub. I don't know for sure. And then I got to look it up. I don't know. Maybe if one of you guys know, you could comment. It's got this little guy in it. It's got a slot in the end. There's also a slot here, and by tightening this thumb screw, you can, and then it also pivots. So I really don't know how you would use it. And then there's this other little guy too, that I'm not sure I'm suspecting for clamping something bigger, a larger pencil or something, and then that goes into. So anyway, I'm going to give this a try today. Nope, it's not going to cut that tight of a circle without binding, so I'll just kind of knock the corners off, make it into a octagon type shape, and then go over to the grinder and make it round. I'll bring it back once I've got that done. Okay, so I got a couple more pieces cut out and kind of explain what's going on here. So you already know about this piece. As I mentioned, I cut out 2 more small round discs that are larger than the mandrel. Those will act as a stop. I also cut out 1 disc that was small enough to slide inside of the mandrel. That will get drilled and tapped in 2 spots across from each other. Then this piece that has the spacer tacked onto the back, that will sit on there. It will be bolted through in the 2 spots into that threaded plate. That way this can be removed, so the whole mandrel can be removed. and then the other disc goes on this end, and it'll get tack welded on, and that'll act as a stop. So the whole thing, when this is bolted on, that'll capture the whole thing within the frame. So this has got a drilled and tapped hole just in the middle. That way I just threaded it onto an arbor, so I was able to chuck it up in the lathe and make it nice and round and almost a press fit in there. So I'll get that tacked into place. And then these are already center punched for the spacing I want. So I will probably put this on here, get it tacked, get it dead centered, and I'll tack it, and that way it'll hold it in place. And then when I drill these two holes, it'll go through and drill the two holes on the other side. I'll drill them. I'm going to use 1/4-inch bolts, so I'll drill it for the right tap drill size for 1/4-inch. And then I'll just cut those tacks loose, pop this piece off, drill it to the final 1/4-inch size, tap these holes, and it'll be ready to go. So I'll probably show you all that operation. I'll just get this thing tacked in place and bring you right back. Okay, so as I discussed, that the end cap, I didn't want to weld in here because that would, of course, interfere with it fitting snugly inside of the main bracket. So what I did is I just drilled 4 holes that just intersected where the mandrel touches, and then reached in through those and plug welded those from the back side. Then I chucked it up in the lathe and just, there was a couple places where the penetration came through here, just chucked it up in the lathe and trimmed those off so they wouldn't hang up. So now what we have left to do is attach this. And as I mentioned initially, I was just going to clamp it and drill through all 3 pieces so it lines up. But trying to get in there and drill when it's clamped, there's not a lot of room. So that original hole that I drilled and tapped so that I could turn this slug down on an arbor, I'm going to use that hole. So I will drill a center hole in this, use that to bolt it tight onto here, and then that gives me room to reach in and put the 2 1/4-inch bolts. The reason why I'm not using just the center bolt is you'd be relying only on the clamping force of the bolt to keep it from doing this, which I don't want to rely on that. So by having 2 bolts offset, that gives you a drive effect. You'd have to shear those 2 1/4-inch bolts off, which won't happen. So I'm going to drill a center hole in this piece out to 3/8 of an inch, put a little short 3/8 inch bolt there, clamp it down there, and then I can set it up on end in the drill press. I'll bring you over for that and drill those through to the trap drill for 1/4-inch. Grab the 3/8 bolt. Okay, that'll hold that tap drill for a 1/4. Tap drill for a 1/4-inch. National course is a letter E. Alright, so now that means those holes are both the threaded hole and the round hole, or the non-threaded hole for the bolts will be lined up perfectly by drilling them both at one time. Take the bolt out, get a 5/16 tap in here, and or I should say a 1/4-inch tap. I'm just going to start it in the drill press, that way it guarantees it's kind of lined up straight. and then I'll finish it. So I clearly didn't read the tap drill chart right. And I should know that. I drilled enough 1/4 inch holes that it's a number 7. What I did is I looked on the wrong side of it. I looked on the drill bit side, and that lined it up to an E. So now I think I got enough room to go out to 5/16, which is an F. Well, it's a good thing I didn't start out wanting to do 5/16 and make that same mistake, because I am right up against the edge of the wall. So, which is good, because that gives me as much, the majority of the leverage. Okay, bring it back over here. Grab a, I got a couple 5/16 short.
A few moments later.
Well, it never fails. I don't have any. I've been putting off, and I need to just replenish my bolt stock. So I don't have any 5/16 there, but that won't necessarily slow down the steps. That'll just be the last part of bolting it together. So that just fits on there. I'll drill these to 5/16. That'll bolt on there so when it's all together. So I'll go ahead now and lay out the grooves for the strap. And that, I just picked this up with, it was like $4, I think, on Amazon. 2-inch wide nylon strap. Black, that'll go through there. So double check, make sure it is 2 inches, and I'll make a groove just a little bit wider than that. Yeah, it's exactly 2 inches wide. So this stuff's pretty thin. It's thinner than what the cutoff wheel is. So I'll just take a Sharpie, lay out the lines, and take the cutoff wheel and cut the grooves in there. And then I'll have to probably I don't want it to end up cutting through the strap from the burr. So I'll maybe take the Dremel with if I've got a small enough little Dremel tool to reach in there and deburr the backside. If in hindsight, I probably should have waited to put one of the ends in. I could have made the holes, and then I could have reached in with a round flap disc and cleaned that burr off, but I'll figure out a way to deburr it. So let me get it laid out here, and then I'll show you cutting those grooves. Okay, so that gets slits, of course, because of the curvature of the blade, it won't go all the way, or the cutting wheel, it won't go all the way to those perimeter lines, but that's where I'm hoping I'll be able to, with the Dremel, get that cleaned up. In a narrow groove like that, it's really hard to keep it from chattering. So the basic rule on chatter is to try, which is why I turned it down, is to remove chatter. The old saying is increase speed, decrease speed. So if you increase the cutting load, or decrease the speed of the tool, that helps with chatter. That worked real well, actually. That ball-shaped mill was able to reach in and deburr the underside, so. Getting the strap through both sides might be a little tricky, however. It's kind of like trying to thread a needle from 6 inches away. I'm going to give up here in a second because you get the gist of how it's going to work, and so I'll worry about getting that threaded through once I get it painted. So let's take a look at the fit over here on the press. That goes through from the back side. Fits nicely there. Got just enough hanging out to where in back and forth will have maybe 1/64 of an inch or something like that. So then this goes on the front. That'll bolt on. That captures it from going anywhere and gives me the dogs, and so I'll have a little tab that comes up off of this, and a little, I don't even think I'm going to worry about a spring because it's not like it's going to go anywhere. Once the pins are in to hold the table, this is just frankly to hold it while you're replacing the pins. So I'll just have a little locking pawl that you flip over one way, and that lets you freewheel it. And when you crank it to the right, it lifts it up and it'll dog in. So I think I'll stop it there. Not sure how much video I've got so far in this episode, and because I got to run and get some bolts anyway, and so I'll either see you back here in a half a second to I'll have it bolted in and make the pawl, or we'll do that in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Well, that was quick. So I still have to go get the bolts, but I thought I'd throw the 3/8 bolt in the middle of it for now, just so you can see. Again, I don't want to rely on that clamping force to handle the torque. So that gives you the effect there. Like I said, maybe 1/64 of an inch was, I wanted a little bit so it wouldn't bind. Turns plenty free. So it's basically just a miniature boat winch. The handle, actually I think what I'll do, had planned on welding the handle extension on here, but given this is going to be bolted on, I haven't decided. Maybe I'll make the handle a flanged fit, so the bolts will hold the handle on as well as this. Haven't decided yet. I'll probably just weld it on a piece of 3/8 or probably half inch. I think half inch will leave room for the heads, and then come out here and then bend a double dog leg in it to give a hand crank. I'll make it to where it doesn't extend past this lower portion. The throw of the handle, I don't want it to get in the way of pressing operation, so it'll come out here with a dog leg and won't be any lower than this piece. So, okay everyone, I've got my bolt supply replenished. So as you can see, I've got the 2 bolts in the toothed wheel versus the 1 bolt in the middle, and I'm working on the pawl or the dog that will lock it in place. So I just cut out a little cardboard template here. I want to be able to rely on gravity, the weight of this dog holding it down versus having to mess with the spring. So I'm going to come off the top with the pivot bracket, so that dog will sit in here, something just like that. See if I can zoom in on that. So it will sit right in here, this X spot being the pivot. So then I can just flip it over to the other side. It would come around here like this and lay on the back side, which won't interfere. And because it's right about here, that's where it'll have the tendency to want to fall down to and catch on the teeth, allowing me to crank it up, but then it'll catch and won't go down. So I'm going to work on making those, cutting those two pieces out. I am going to cut this piece out of 1/4 inch thick, so that way it'll be wider than the toothed wheel, so it allows for a little bit of play. It'll still engage it well. And then the backside piece that this bolts to, that'll just be 3/16. So I'm going to get going on that. So what I did there is I just taped it in place, and then I can go around the backside, hold another piece of cardboard up as a bracket, and just transfer that shape. Okay, so that's what the other little piece looks like. That it'll just sit on the back of the main frame. Okay, there's both pieces roughed out. I'll take them over to the grinder and clean them up and be right back. Okay, both of those are cleaned up on the grinder and the flap disc. So I've got this one center punched. I'll go drill a 1/4 inch hole in that. And then I won't drill the hole in this mating bracket until I have a better feel for where it goes. Okay, so I've got that hole drilled. The way I'm going to capture this little paw or dog so that it doesn't flop around, but yet it's still, the pivot point is captured, is I'm just using a longer than needed bolt. This space here, that's where the other mounting bracket will be. So I can put that in there, tighten this nut down, and that will clamp it. And then I can use this intermediate nut, either loosening or tightening that to change how much. Since if I back it off, then there's this much slack. So I'll bring that nut down to where it's just not tight, where this can still swivel. Put it through the hole and then lock it down with this one. That'll control how much play this dog has. So that means I've got to lay out roughly where that hole is going to be in the other bracket and get a 1/4 inch hole drilled in there. Then I can bolt the whole assembly together, just hold it up there where it belongs and tack the other bracket in place. All right, so I've got those bolted together. Like I said, with that spacer, that lets the dogs still move freely. That will just clamp up here. I think that's gonna work. Let me bring you around here so you can see. Three wheels that way, but locks that way. So I'll take those nuts and bolts out so I can weld it in the front. Alrighty. That's adjusted up good. Get you in here close. The weld pulled it a little bit. I might have to relieve. It still locks, but it doesn't quite drop down. That one it does. Some of the teeth, I'll just relieve this portion right there, and then it will drop down in there every time. And like I said, when I want to let it around, I just let it down, and that way get a free wheel. All right, so that part's, other than relieving that a little bit, that part is done. So what we have left is not a lot. The table that I mentioned, and then to attach the straps. So I think I'm going to work on the table. I had already done a little bit of that. I can't remember if I covered it or not, but I made a bushing here. It's got a hole in it. The hole does not go all the way through. I'll drop a ball bearing down on the bottom, and then I'll have a pin that comes in from the top. That's what the table will swivel on, and the bottom of that pin will touch on the ball bearing, so that way there's not a lot of friction, so it'll spin easy. So that pin and arm will be attached to the table. And kind of the idea behind it is I don't want a table sticking out all the time in the way. So this will get welded on somewhere right about here. The table will have a curved arm and it'll stick up. Because of that ball bearing, I can keep this below the area, so if I have stuff on the table, it doesn't hit. But because there'll be a ball bearing in the bottom, and I can adjust, I'll set the pin height for the swing arm to where it's above. So anyway, it'll be over here, and since it's a curved arm, I'll be able to swing it around, and it'll nest in this area when not in use, and then it'll fold back around. And if it happened to be in the way for something, it won't be bolted in. It'll just be sitting in this bushing, riding on that ball bearing, so I'll just pick it out. So I made that ahead of time. I think, if I remember right, I made that for 1/2 inch. Excuse me, 1/2 inch pin. Yep, it's like 506 thousandths, so a 1/2 inch pin should fit in there with just a tiny bit, a little bit of play, so it'll swing nice. So I've got some, and then I'm going to put expanded metal, I think, in the bottom of the tray so it doesn't collect dirt and stuff. Most pins and things that would go in there are big enough that they won't fall through the holes in the expanded metal. So let me get all that steel rounded up and I will come back. Okay, so I'm going to get ready to put this piece on. There's the ball bearing I talked about. That is the end of that. So then that one, I put the guide rod in there. That'll sit on that ball bearing, which is much harder than the mild steel, and give it a nice bearing surface at the bottom. Okay, so I just finished editing, and I'm right at about a half an hour. So before diving into the sliding or the swinging basket or tray, that had put me out pretty close to an hour. So I think I'll finish it up at this episode. We finished up the ratcheting mechanism. I did off camera. I'll get in here close. I did relieve this the underside of the pawl, like I talked about. So now it locks in there perfectly on every tooth. Flips around, works that way. So anyway, that's completely done now, other than the handle. So anyway, I will get you guys back in here in the shop for the next episode. I'm actually a little ahead on some footage. I'll give you a quick sneak peek here, because I did get a fair amount done on the swinging tray. So there's a sneak peek of it. So come back for the next episode and you'll see how that plays out. Thanks again, as always, for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.